On the rundown for today's Philadelphia 76ers, now we're going to have a great conversation and take a look at 3 trade targets from the Portland Trail Blazers alone. You think about the Blazers and you think awful basketball team. They traded away Damian Lillard. Last year, they were completely irrelevant, but when you look at their roster, might be a fire sale. But they also have some intriguing pieces who I think could be of interest for Daryl Morey and this organization. First, we're having a great June sub-battle between 76ers. Now, in the Miami Heat report, it's really been a neck-and-neck race. Yesterday, though, the Heat report had a big day. They're up to 115 subscribers picked up in the first 12 days of this month. We can beat them today alone. If you just help us out and hit that sub button right now, you get daily and at this point, nearly year-round coverage of the Philadelphia 76ers. So make sure you subscribe to us here on 76ers Now. Informative, insightful, entertaining, and great Sixers coverage that involves you, the viewer, and the fan. So why the Portland Trail Blazers here? Portland, in the early stages of their rebuild after trading away Damian Lillard, and they have some valuable pieces that don't really fit their timeline or are in the way of some of their younger players getting some run. And we want to start off with the familiar face here in Jerami Grant, who got paid a couple of years ago, but is that positionless type of player who could fit in really nicely on this Sixers roster. Remember during the process era when Philadelphia drafted Jerami Grant out of Syracuse, uber athlete, pogo sticks for legs. At that time, he was trying to develop that corner 3. Not only has he developed that, but he's developed a pretty nice offensive game where he has a midi, he can shoot the 3 all around the arc now, still is a really good athlete, has a little dribble drive to his game, and it would be a pretty cool story, but a good basketball fit if the Sixers were to bring him home. After starting his career in Philadelphia, he's just developed into a very solid NBA player. The stats with the Sixers, 144 games played before he was traded away, 8 points per game, 4 rebounds per game, only 39% from the field, 27.5% from beyond the arc. But credit to him because development is the key word that we're going to bring up a lot with Jerami Grant because that's what he's been able to do. Not a lot of people saw this coming after his Sixers tenure because he was so raw. Where in 2020, 2021 with Detroit, I get it, bad basketball team, but look at those numbers. 22 points per, 4.5 rebounds, 43% from the field, 35% from three-point range. The next year, the shooting numbers are around the same, but how about what he's been able to do the last 2 years with Portland? 20.5 points per game 2 years ago, 4.5 rebounds, 47.5% from the field, 40% from three-point range. And then this past year, once again, right around that 21 points per game number, 3.5 rebounds, 45% from the wood, and more than 40% from distance. So that's back-to-back years in which Jerami Grant has connected on 40% of his three-point shots. Again, the word development has been one of the buzzwords for Jerami Grant over the last 4 or 5 years, and good for him. Now, why would Portland move him? He's coming off a career year. He just turned 30 years old. His value is high right now. Might not ever be as high as what it is right now. And he's also under contract long term, and he doesn't really fit the timeline for what the Blazers are trying to do and accomplish right now. And you do look at that contract for a player of this caliber who isn't going to be the number 2 on a championship team. You're not asking him to do that, but he is a little bit pricey for what he does give you. It's not $36 million per year for Tobias Harris, and Jerami Grant might be a better fit than Tobias Harris, certainly better on the defensive end, but are you willing to pay him nearly $30 million this year, $32 next, $34 plus after that, and then the final year of his contract, 2027-2028 player option, $36.4 million. Here is our Jerami Grant trade idea, where the Sixers get solely Jerami Grant, and then the Trailblazers receive a 2024 first, that's 16th overall, and then a 2026 first in a couple of years. So you do give up 2 first-round picks. I'd package 2 picks in the first round for probably a better player. To me, that's a lot for Jerami Grant. But if you like him, if you're Daryl Morey as an analytical player and a really good fit, two-way guy who's really developed his game, are you willing to package those 2 picks for a player like Jerami Grant? Chip, I'm a little bit indecisive on this. I think you could get a better player out there via a trade, but what do you think?
Absolutely, and I don't think this would be, Daryl Morey's first choice of trade targets, especially giving up 2 first-round picks. No, I will say, obviously you're giving up 16 this year. This 2026 first, it's going to be at the back end of the first round. It is the least favorable of OKC, Houston, or the Clippers, so the worst of those 3 picks is going to go to Philly. So it's basically, a back end of the first, close to a second-round pick, so it's not going to be a highly valuable first. Look, I think Portland is going to demand 2 first-round picks for Jerami Grant. A guy that I think would be a very good third option on a championship team if he can continue to maintain the efficiency that he's developed in Portland, shooting 40% from 3. And he's, again, a great defender, very athletic. He's really developed all around since his time here in Philadelphia. If you strike out on, a big-time trade target like a Jimmy Butler or like a Mikal Bridges, I think Jerami Grant would be a very good, next option.
Secondary, third option.
Yeah, I think to his contract, you look at it, it's, $30 million. Sounds like a lot, but, the NBA salary cap is just going to keep rising. They're going to sign a new TV deal here that's going to just make the cap explode even more. And, we're seeing players make upwards of $50 million a year now. I think $30 million, is kind of the going rate for a player like Jerami Grant. I'd probably rather have him at like 25 to 30 in the high end, so it's a bit pricey. But the skill set Jerami Grant can bring to this team, I think this is a trade I would pull the trigger on again if you can't get one of those top guys.
We're only getting started here on today's 76ers now, but let's cue up this poll question here. Would you accept the trade? You see it there to the left. Jerami Grant, 2024-2026 first-round picks. A for accept, D for decline. Show us that you know ball down in the comment section right now. Coming up, 2 more trade targets from the Portland Trail Blazers. Stay tuned for that, but we want to tell you about this great deal thanks to our friends at Fanatics. We've been pushing this week because a lot of people getting set to go to the beach, and you'll be looking good and staying cool at the beach with this 76ers tank top. 25% off, limited time only. Use that link down below. Thanks to our friends at Fanatics. Chatsports.com/76ers tank. We'll attach that to the pinned comment, and it's already down in the show notes for everybody. Trade target number 2 from the Portland Trail Blazers. Another playoff level piece, just like Jerami Grant. Malcolm Brogdon can fill that category as well. And why would the Sixers trade for Malcolm Brogdon here? We've talked about him a couple of times here on the show. Makes winning plays, good on both ends. He can shoot the 3, play on ball, off ball, 6th man of the year last year. He brings scoring, spacing, playmaking as a veteran guard who can run your offense, but again, is comfortable playing off ball alongside Tyrese Maxey. And this is also a player, I think, who kind of fortifies your depth and adds to your rotation. Last 4 years, of course, the concerns with Malcolm Brogdon always are going to be the injuries, and he's missed a lot of time throughout his entire career. That's continued to be the storyline over the last 4 years for him. But you do look at some of the numbers here, especially the last 2 years. When he won 6th man of the year with Boston, 15 points per game, 48% from the floor, 44.5% from beyond the arc. Why did the Celtics get rid of him? They wanted to bring in a better player in Drew Holiday, and it's clearly worked out for Boston. A very smart move by Brad Stevens. And then this year, 15.7 points per game, bad Portland team. Missed half the games, not good. 5.5 assists, 44% from the floor, and 41% from three-point range. Why Portland should and could move Malcolm Brogdon? Final year of his deal, $22.5 million at 31 years old, not likely to stay in Portland. So you get some value back while you still can. And going back to the injury front, some good, some bad, some concerning here. For Brogdon, as you look at his games played by year, 2016, 2017, 75 games. That's great. Following year, 48, not good. After that, 64, not terrible. And then with Indiana, 2019, 2020, 54. After that, 56, 36, 67, and 39. The path, the trajectory has kind of been a year in which he does play a decent amount of games, followed by a year in which he doesn't. For Philadelphia, do you bank on that kind of trend where he only played 39 games last year, and you're thinking, okay, final year of his deal, going to be motivated to stay healthy so that he can get a bag, and this year in 2024, 2025, he can stay on the floor. Here's our Malcolm Brogdon trade idea, where the Sixers get Brogdon, just a single player once again, and then all you have to give up, as Chip alluded to, that least valuable first-round pick in 2026 via OKC, Houston, and the Clippers. This is kind of that buy low, you give away a pick that was kind of a luxury pick that you got at the time, and you're just hoping, Chip, that he can stay on the floor.
Yeah, and I do think Brogdon good enough player where he is going to demand a first-round pick, but again, those injury concerns, I don't think Portland would be asking for too much for him. Again, you give him that late first, and I think Portland would be happy to move on, get something for him where he's probably going to leave after this year anyways. Yeah, I do love his fit, either next to Tyrese Maxey or coming off the bench. He can do a little bit of everything. He's I feel like a championship-level player. He makes winning plays, does all the right things. He's smart, can shoot it, can, make plays for others. If you can get him, and this is the going price, going to cost you $22 million in salary this year. But again, another player in Portland where, they have a couple of young guards coming up, Anfernee Simons, Shaedon Sharpe. They're going to want to give minutes to those young guys. Brogdon, could be a player. Again, big risk if you're asking him to stay healthy, which he has a lot of trouble with, and we know that's the thing the Sixers had to deal with a lot ever since Joel Embiid has joined the team and dealing with injury concerns. But Brogdon, again, a solid player that I think impacts winning. Wouldn't have to give up much for him. I would pull the trigger on this deal for sure.
So what do the people think? Speak up. Just gauging where the audience is at here. Is Malcolm Brogdon worth a first-round pick? It's the 2026 first. Doesn't have a lot of value. Expected to be late in the draft. Type Y for yes. Type N for no. If there's a pick that you do give up in one of these trades, you're willing to part ways with that 2026 first-rounder. And then lastly, this is a player who I'm intrigued by. It's Anfernee Simons. Anfernee Simons' development over the last couple of years has been impressive. And I think part of the reason why the Blazers were willing to give up Damian Lillard, they knew that they had Simons kind of waiting in the wings. As for what he brings, he is a dynamic scorer off the dribble. He's definitely an improved playmaker. Can his game translate to wins? We've seen a lot of positive moments. We've seen him score in bunches. This is another player who's missed sizable time because of injuries. But the production and that development, and I always love developmental stories because it means that you have the level of dedication to improve your game. It's impressive, and there's no way to look past that. 2020, 2021, he plays in 64 games. He's averaging 8 points per. The following year, it's a very much Tyrese Maxey type of leap where he doubles his points per game, more than doubles it to 17.3, and he's shooting 44% from the field and 40.5% on his threes. Year after that, scoring production goes up once again, 21.1 points per game. And then the shooting number is pretty damn good with the volume there. This past year, plays in a little more than half the games, only 46 though. You hate to see that. 22.5 points per, and then 43% from the field and 38.5% from three-point range. So this is a player who can fill it up as far as scoring the basketball. I might like him more in that Jordan Clarkson role coming off the bench because you can turn the keys to him. He can run your offense, and if you need a bucket, he can get you a bucket. He can also be a part of that closing five if you need him to because he is used to starting games and closing games. Now, why would Portland move Simons? He's only 25 years old, so he could be a building block for the Blazers as they look ahead as part of this rebuilding process. But are they going to prioritize their backcourt of Scoot Henderson, who's only 20 years old, and he has a lot of potential as an athlete, kind of like a Russell Westbrook type of player. Hopefully he can develop the three a little bit more than Russ. And coming out of the draft, or going into the draft a couple of years ago, I like Shaedon Sharpe a lot. So you have that backcourt of Scoot Henderson, Shaedon Sharpe. Where does Simons fill in? And does he kind of get in the way of your development of a team that is a little bit too guard-rich right now? And then you can continue to add draft picks to maybe add some pieces to that backcourt who makes some sense. Simons' contract, he did sign that deal somewhat recently, 2024-2025, a shade under $26 million per. And then the following year, 2025-2026, $27.5 million. Pretty affordable if he stays on the floor and he gives you that production that he's really started to put up the last couple of seasons. Our Simons trade idea, to kind of round things out here, going to cost a little bit more than Malcolm Brogdon because Brogdon is older and injured. His value not as high. Simons, younger, still has untapped potential, I believe. So you give up 16th overall this year and then the 2028 first via the Clippers a few years down the pipe. So Chip, of all these players, Simons is intriguing probably the most because of the age here.
Yeah, and that's why I think you'd have to give up that Clippers pick in 2028. I think the Blazers recognize, Simons is still getting better, still on the up, a dynamic scorer who has really shown a lot since he came out of the draft very, very young to Portland many years ago. And, my thing with Simons is, do you want him starting in that backcourt next to Maxey? As good as Simons has been and as good as he's been able to develop offensively, he continues to be, honestly, one of the worst defenders in the league. He's 6'3", but only 180 pounds. He's very thin, just has never really had it defensively. So, I like what you said, about him being more that Jordan Clarkson role where he can come off the bench and score and then can be in the closing lineups. But, for the Sixers, do you want to give up 2 first-round picks and a pretty valuable one in that Clippers pick for a player who, ideally might be coming off the bench? I don't know. The salary's fine at 25, 27 million. I think for a player like him, that's about right.
Yeah.
But, I put him 30th for a reason. I do think I'd rather have definitely Jerami Grant. I think I'd rather have Malcolm Brogdon. Now, again, the injury concerns for both of them are a thing. I'm just not sure how well Simons would fit in next to Maxey, especially when you do consider his defensive ability. But, man, that offensive upside and him still being so young is very, very intriguing.
Make a good point about the defense. Not a good defensive player, which is why I think he might be better suited for a playoff level team of coming in off the bench. And look at how players like Jordan Clarkson, Lou Williams, how they're valuable as far as volume scorers who don't start but come in off the bench. And it's a pretty cool role for them because they can control things. They can dictate the pace, the flow, the momentum of the game. They know that even though they're not starting, they're going to get plenty, ample opportunities to score the basketball, which is their strong suit. But a player who's as bad defensively as a player like Jordan Clarkson, Anfernee Simons, that's why you got to perfect your role, and perfecting your role for a playoff level team, if you want to win, might be coming in off the pine. Pick one to trade for. 3 trade targets from the Portland Trail Blazers: Jerami Grant, Malcolm Brogdon, Anfernee Simons. Submit those answers down in the comment section right now as you venture down there. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button here on 76ers Now. We're continuing to give you content every single day here on the show.